back to Fairly Critical. This is our continued review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, where we will be discussing spoilers. If you haven't seen our spoiler-free review, stop what you are doing and go watch it. A link to that video is in the description of this one. If you have seen it, thank you for coming and watching this video as well. I am your host, Jacob. Let's begin. And let's start off with this. Can we just talk about how awesome Killmonger's Return was for a second? There were all these theories online that he was going to come back from the dead somehow, and you know, he was going to be completely different, having spent 6 or 7 years on the ancestral plane, and how he was going to be changed by having discussions with all the other Black Panthers, and he was going to be the new one. And that didn't happen. Obviously, Shuri's the new Black Panther, but him coming back and her seeing him in the ancestral plane was so cool. And it perfectly fit in with her story arc for excuse me, for this movie. Perfectly fit in with her struggle. It was so cool. It was so good to see Michael B. Jordan come back and reprise that role as well. So I just wanted to freak out about that because that was awesome. Of course, Shuri's struggle being that she's rejecting her people's tradition and their faith, and that she's secluding herself in science and technology, because one, she never really believed in it. There's a line in the first movie that she has no reverence towards their tradition, so we know that she's got doubts in their faith, and she's always been more futuristic and worldly than the rest of her population. But with the loss of her brother at the opening of the movie, where she's praying to Bass saying, "I'll never have any doubts in you ever again if you'll just save my brother or help me save my brother," and then that doesn't happen. That's I think that's a really strong point. I know that someone of faith, there are things that happen that make us doubt, and we question whether or not the God that we're praying to is real. And then you come to a point where you're like, you're not necessarily not believing that he exists, you're just kind of angry at him. And that kind of seems like where Shuri's at, because we as an audience know that Bass does in fact exist. And so we know that she's real, but Shuri, in her anger and rage, is just not willing to agree to that, because, you know, if God is all powerful and all knowing, and then something bad happens, is he really all powerful, or is he really all good? One of them is in conflict there. She decides to recreate the heart-shaped herb, though, and in the spoiler-free section, I mentioned that there was a decision that she makes that kind of felt like it was a jump, like maybe we missed something, maybe it wasn't paced well enough, or a scene was deleted. And this is that decision that I'm referring to, because she's talking with M'Baku, and he's telling her not to seclude herself in in her precious technology. And that's when, like, the next scene, she decides to go with a heart-shaped herb. But at the end of that conversation, it still feels like she's resisting his words. Like, he's going up there and giving her counsel, and she's just not really ready to hear it. At least that's what I thought when I was watching it. Was just that she wasn't ready for it. So the next scene, when she decides to make the herb, I was kind of caught off guard. Obviously, that's where the movie was going, but the scene that preceded it, just, to me, it didn't flow into that one quite as well as I think it could have. I also feel like Riri Williams' character just could have been better implemented. Not even thinking about for the second that she really had no effect on the plot. She could have been removed and one scene rewritten, and it wouldn't have made any difference. But just her as a character could have been done differently. The Wakandan outreach centers, which we are introduced to at the end of the first movie, are everywhere. And for someone so as brilliant as Riri Williams is, I think it would have been better served if she was a part of that outreach center, and her intelligence combined with the resources of Wakanda and them kind of spearheading this sharing of technology and science could have made for a much better connection between Riri and the people of Wakanda. I think that was a missed opportunity Yes, you could argue that like if she's a part of the outreach center, how did she create the device that that the CIA used to find the vibranium in the ocean? Sure, okay, there could be some conflict there, but you could just as easily write it off as, an MIT professor found her notes on it, or um, the CIA hacked it, and that was all that they were able to get out. We saw in this movie, which was an awesome scene, that the Western powers are trying to steal some science from Wakanda. So maybe they had a um, a operation that wasn't able to get everything, but was able to get Riri Williams designs for that detection service, or that detection machine. It could have been easily written that she had a connection to Wakanda through these outreach centers, and instead she's this incredibly brilliant student at MIT that is maybe on par with Iron Man. At least she certainly is in the comics. We don't know the extent of her intelligence in the MCU quite yet. But it was a missed opportunity for her not to be included in that outreach program, I thought. Because the outreach programs in this movie only serve the purpose to create a cool fight scene between the Dora Milaje and French mercenaries, which was cool, but I think they could have done more with it. Um, that also would have tied her into the plot a little bit better, because maybe she was invited to Wakanda by Shuri because of how intelligent she was, and she got caught up in the battle with Namor. I don't know. It just Anyway, I'm gonna move on. Namor feels like he's a less compelling version of Killmonger to me. Um, I appreciate the change in Namor's story from the comics to the movies. Namor the Submariner was actually written in the 1940s. He fought alongside Captain America in Captain America's original comics, and he fought alongside him against Germany and the Nazis in those comics. So he's a old character. He predates Aquaman. However, when DC wrote Aquaman, they pretty much copy and pasted Namor's origins. And so while Namor comes first in the comics, he comes second in the movies. And so if you stuck with Namor's original origin story, it would have felt like a copy and paste from the Jason Momoa film from, I think, 2016 was when Aquaman came out. So I am glad that they changed that. It is a less compelling Killmonger, though. Their motivations are pretty much the same. Some Western colonizers have treated their people badly for hundreds of years and not been fair to them, and now it's time for a comeuppance. That's pretty much it. And he just doesn't pull it off as well as Michael B. Jordan does. I'm sorry to say, but Michael B. Jordan brought something special to the role of Eric Killmonger, and it just wasn't quite there with Namor the Submariner, I don't think. I will say Talakon is a nice parallel to Wakanda, being that's essentially if a less compelling version of Killmonger took over Wakanda, that's kind of what you'd get with Talakon. But again, while that's a nice parallel, it's also open to the critique that it's essentially just retreading the same plot from the first movie. Shuri, however, did not have the same arc as T'Challa did in the first Black Panther movie, but she did have a similar arc to the one that he had when we first meet him in Captain America: Civil War. At the end of the fight with Namor, she even has a very similar line to the one that Black Panther has with Baron Zemo, where she goes, revenge. Yeah, revenge has consumed us, but it shouldn't consume our people. And in Civil War, if you remember, he says vengeance has consumed them, it's consumed you, and I am done letting it consume me. It is a very similar story arc between the two. Obviously, you see more depth with Shuri because it is her movie, whereas Civil War, it was a B plot. But they're similar regardless. I liked it. I did like it. I did think it was cool and intriguing and compelling. But even as a B plot, I think that um, Chadwick Boseman brought so much to that role that it was, you could argue that that B plot in Civil War had more feeling to it than what Letitia Wright was able to bring to this movie. And that's not a knock on Letitia Wright. I know it sounds like it is. That is just simply praise for Chadwick Boseman. That man was a superior acting talent to pretty much anyone you'd ever meet. I think he was probably the best actor that the MCU ever fielded. And just his ability to bring charisma and drama to a role. So if you really liked Shuri in this film, great. I did too. I thought Letitia Wright did a great job. But Chadwick Boseman is something else, and that's just all there is to it. Okay, now I do have a different little exercise for you guys here. I want to propose to you a changing of the story, and I'm going to give you my reasons why, and I want you guys in the comment section to tell me if you think that it might have been better or not, or if you liked the original story that was written. There's no, no bad, no good here. We're just talking because it's fun to theorize. So here's my proposed different story. What if Shuri did not take up the mantle of Black Panther in this movie? What if she did not decide to recreate the heart-shaped herb? So let's say everything goes as planned in the movie, up until Angela Bassett's death, Queen Ramonda's death, and M'Baku telling Shuri that she cannot seclude herself in her technology, but she resists him and she ends up secluding herself in her technology, and does not recreate the heart-shaped herb. So she finds a weakness for Namor, just like she did in this film with Riri Williams, and she exploits that. And it goes well enough. She's got a suit of armor, the armor that she gave to Okoye, Denai Guerrera's character, and she had a version of that suit herself. And that suit, combined with the weakness that she found for Namor, was able to overcome him. And rather than killing him, because really her fight's not with Namor. Yeah, he killed her people and everything, and he attacked Wakanda. But her anger is not just at him. It's more about losing T'Challa. So in the final fight, she finds a way to overcome that anger and think strategically and think logically. And she offers peace to Namor, just like she did in this film. And then after that fight, she finally, after coming through her anger and surpassing her anger, finally tells her AI to pull up the files on the heart-shaped herb at the end of the movie, which would obviously tease that she's going to become the Black Panther in the third movie. So the reasons why I think this would be really good is because, one, the movie's 2 hours and 41 minutes long, and if you didn't have, some of those scenes where she's working on the heart-shaped herb, then it would shorten it a little bit. But also because, like I said, it feels like there's a scene missing where she just decides that that's what she's going to do, even though she hasn't fully accepted that the traditions of her people were correct. Even when she does take the heart-shaped herb, she comes out saying, what is the point? I went through this ceremony and I did all this stuff, and I didn't even get to speak to my mother or whatnot. And so she really hasn't fully accepted her people yet, the traditions of her people yet. And she is still resistant towards that. And I think it would be cool if she keeps to that resistance until the final fight, and her accepting of that is what gets her to change the circumstances of that fight. And then the next movie, we get to see her become a completely different Black Panther, one where that she strikes a balance, one where there is a balance between the traditions of her people and the new science and technology that she favors so highly. So that's my recommendation. That's my proposal. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section. Do you think that would work? Do you think that the new Black Panther, the third one, will have some type of balance between faith and tradition and science and technology. I certainly think that's where it's going. Tell me what you thought of the movie. I thought Ryan Coogler did a good job, even having to deal with what he had to deal with. I thought the cast did a great job. But I will leave it here. We will be back hopefully next week with a new video, an analysis video. If you guys liked that video, check out some of our others. We've got analysis videos. We've got full movie reviews. We've got list videos. Check something out. If you like it, give it a like. If you like more than one video, subscribe to the channel, because chances are you'll like what we're coming out with next. But I will leave it here. Thank you guys again for your support so far. I've been your host, Jacob, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.